in January, I scored like a 139. The highest I've scored with my recent weeks like a 152. So I've been progressing, but I'm looking to at least reach 160. So I'm kind of like having my tidbits, like where on my logical, look at me about to combine the sections, the logical reasoning, I would like notice that I get like 12 to maybe 13 right, but I'm like just trying to figure out what small things like that I need to hit more. I just figured out something for reading comp though with the what Iyakas, they say it.
Yeah,
her
yeah.
with her doing the paragraph thing, and I've been doing that all day, and it's like making a difference already. So
great. No, I'm really glad to hear that. For logical reasoning, what's your process like?
So like I don't have like a hard like process, but what I did realize was that I just slow down and basically like the way I was looking at the questions, let's say for the looking for the gap, like I truly had to go through that same question type to understand, okay, this is what this gap is talking about, not just essentially like the flaw, but you know, it's like you actually see what that answer choice is connecting between your premise and your conclusion. So it's like I don't have a clear step, but I like when I go into it, I know what I'm looking for when I slow down. So maybe that's why I haven't, you know, gotten that to click yet all the way for it.
Right. You got to slow down and look for the gap, whether it's a flaw question or some other question type, doesn't matter. Find the conclusion, find the evidence, and then ask yourself, what's that disconnect? How is it possible for the evidence to be true, yet for the conclusion to be false for every single argument you encounter?
And my logic games has been really good, but I just have to find out how to speed up. So I write down my rules and I'll go to, I don't make inferences because I find that I hesitate so long that it hinders me with the questions. So I just go in your order, how you go from local questions to the global. And that has helped me tremendously. So I just need to get my timing up so I can fit one more game in there, because I know if I can get that other game or at least a couple more minutes, I can like get through them like with no problem.
Awesome. So it sounds like you're really maximizing your use of the previous work by doing them in that order.
Yes.
That's awesome. I would look to see if there's anything you could do to make inferences up front. If you see the same variable featured in multiple rules, for example, that's an indication that you might be able to combine them.
Right. Well, no, yeah, I do in that instance. Like that's like a smaller inference, but I'm like, you know how some of them where you can like write out the entire game and have it like this option or this option. Like I can do that because I was also granted extra time. Nice. So I have the 53 minutes. So I feel like that has like lifted like a big load to where I can actually like slow down and think, because it takes me so long to process the stuff and the inferences, it makes me like hesitate way too long, which I can do it, but I just feel like it messes with me with time.
Right. That's fine. You don't need to map out the entire thing up front.
But my biggest thing was before I watched Iyanka's thing was the reading comp. So I'm practicing playing with that, and I'm like, it's becoming totally different for me. So I think my main thing is my logic reason. I think it's possible because from a 152 to a 160, even like my last one I did the other day was like a 149 I did, but I scored horrible on my reading comp. I only had 10 right out of the section. And I'm like, well, you know, if I would have had that together, I could have been, you know, more in the range. So I'm like, well, I need to figure out, I just want to figure out like some type of process for the logical reasoning that I can like know for sure, you know, instead of me just, I know you have to it's just looking for that gap, which I do see now, that difference, that like made a difference. But are there any other steps that I should be taking into consideration or?
Well, I already mapped out for you just conclusion, evidence, gap. That cuts across almost all of logical reasoning. But aside from that step-by-step approach, I would also look at what does your review process look like after the fact. For any question you get wrong or have difficulty with, what are you doing to note the mistakes that you're making or the tricks that you're falling for so you can avoid making them again?
So like, once I get it wrong, just a couple of days ago, I was like, let me see if there's a pattern in which question types I'm getting wrong, which I found that it was like assumption and causes the question. So basically weakening were like my main ones. So I'll say, okay, I chose this answer, and I'll compare it to the correct answer and see what the difference is, because I typically always get it down to where I narrow down to two. And of course, I always end up choosing the wrong one. So I sit there and I compare the two, like, okay, why is the one I selected different from this one? And I see and I'll go back and look at the argument and see where it complies. And I'm like, okay. And I'll sit there and just look at it and keep reading again until it clicks, like, okay, this is what it was. Like, this is this small word that is too specific, or, this is not broad enough, or something like that. So I literally just compare the two answers and compare it to the argument and read it over and over until I understand or see what that difference is.
That's great. I mean, that's what it's all about. I would encourage you to write down your thought process in terms of what you're noting. So which tricks and traps are you uniquely prone to falling for? What's tempting you about the wrong answer? What's unappealing to you about the right answer, but what still makes it correct? So you'll see in a lot of the workshops, you've been going through the reading comp ones with Ayaka, go through some of the logical reasoning ones where I use a Google Doc, because you'll see how I take notes on what that review process can look like and different angles you can use to approach whatever LR questions are giving you trouble.
Right. Yeah, because like one new one I noticed, it was like popped up different for me, was like the meaning of the word was used differently in the conclusion. That was the first time I saw that. And I was like, oh, wow. And it took me a minute to realize what that issue was. But then I looked at it and I'm like, oh, it is in a different context. So it was like, but that was one I never thought to expect to look. So it was like, I like when I run into those things, because it's like, okay, this is a new one that I know, it kind of makes me open up the box, think outside the box a little bit more, that I run into those. But I think I'm gonna have to do that, just to write it down, just so I can see and look at the list of, okay, just like a reminder of what these are. Because just recently I just went and looked at the question types, which is something that you think you would have been. But like, I think I was just so flustered and everything that I finally like, okay, slow down. This is it. Like once I see myself like improve, I was like, okay, what smaller things are we doing now that we can fix, that we can dig a little deeper to get to that next level?
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, like something like the change in definitions over the course of an argument, you're right, that doesn't come up that often. And so with just simply more exposure alone, you'll come across those methods of reasoning or those flaws that show up less and less frequently. But the more you can add into your library, the better, because that way when you encounter it again, you'll recognize it that much more quickly.
Yeah, because what I've been doing was looking at the classroom videos, and then I'll go on Khan Academy and run that kind of question type. And, it gives you the explanation as well. So I still look at both and just kind of play back and forth. So like there's a full explanation of it as well, but I can also still see and compare it to your methods. Because the methods I learned from like the course itself, like has changed my thought process of this whole test, like entirely. Like it's like an eye opener. And like now I feel like I can actually conquer the LSAT, but I'm shooting for the 160 because I'm taking it in November. So I think that's a fair range to kind of keep myself in with it, because I want to apply it to start in the fall, of course.
Nice. Well, now between now and November, you've got plenty of time. You got at least 6-7 weeks. There's enough time you can make anything happen.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like, it was like a big relief though. Like I really feel like now I feel like I'm more excited to get to it, because I'm like, let me keep running. And then when I'm drilling them, I'm not drilling the easy ones. I'm going to the advanced ones only. So I'm like, well, if I can figure out what the problems are with the hard, the harder questions, once I see the easy ones, it'll be like, okay, well, this is that. And it clicks a lot easier for me. So I thought I've been challenging myself with only doing the advanced ones on the Khan Academy one, and kind of like doing the ending ones at the end, like, how it typically goes from easier to hard. So I kind of like challenge myself more with those, because that makes me think on a different level. When I see it on the easy one, it's like, okay, well, this is this and that. It falls right in. So I was like wondering if that was like a good approach to do, or should I still do like the different levels of it? Or
I would say probably you're going to be best served by doing full sections, because that reflects exactly what you're going to see on test day. So if you're doing a range of difficulty, that's totally fine. Do some easy, some medium, some hard. Don't do only harder. That could be kind of discouraging. Don't do only easy, because you want to challenge yourself.
Right.
But full sections are the best place to get that wide variety. But any drill you want to do on Khan, it's fine.
Yeah. So like recently, like mid-September, I started doing I would do a full practice test on the weekends. And then throughout the week, I would do, because I get off, I work a 12-hour shift, of course. So once I get off work, I would do a time section for each test. And then I'll go ahead and, get my raw score and see what I would do. So that's how I do basically, you can say 2 time tests a week. So every one I've been doing has been time. I haven't done it on time. I've been pacing myself. So I actually been seeing my real results when I freak out, when I run into a crazy game. So, I'm getting different reactions and I've still been scoring, like I said, between the 146 was the lowest I did, and then 152 was the highest. So.
Nice. Well, you're well on your way. I'd say going forward, add in more review, just articulating the review, writing it down. That's the biggest suggestion I'd have for you.
Okay. And I think that I'm going to take those practice tests that I did, that was time, to go back and write down and see what, if I can re-identify those and make sure that, I have a complete understanding of it. Because I think by me being used to the time situation, it's nothing new. So if I take the time, more time to review once I go, and I'm be able to knock it out the park to just go ahead and hit it. So.
Sweet. Any other challenges or questions you have about what to be doing?
That was it. That I was gonna have, I literally had in my notes about the reading comp, and I just played around, and I kept seeing people say Iyanka, and which I went through the course, I watched the videos, and I'm like, well, let me take a look at this one more time just to rewatch it, and I'm like, okay, that makes a big difference, and I'm like, the only thing with that one is how she says the primary purpose, how you just say conclusion or problem or whatever. I feel like with my mind, like my short-term memory is like not there, which is how I got the extra time. So I feel like me writing like one extra detail or a little bit, more can help me not have to reread the whole entire thing, and I can reference to that, So I think with me having that extra time, maybe I can spare that extra few words I can write. Yeah. So I'm like, so just kind of
agree. You got to adapt it for yourself a little bit, but if you have extra time, that can help. And those are all just different models, like simple structure, complex structure, however you want to lay out your notes for reading comp is totally fine. I think really complex is better for review than for timed conditions, but you find your balance.
Yeah. And I noticed that like I was able to pace myself with logical reasoning, that I was able to get through like a couple of times. I actually got through all of the questions, but I didn't have that key factor of looking into it. So it was like I hit that range of 12 right or 13 right. But it was like one good time I had like 16 or 17. I'm like, okay, something I'm missing, that it's something small. It got to be like the easy overlooked mistakes or something that, it's just not, I got to sit there and kind of find. So I think writing down would definitely make the biggest difference for me. But I did have a question. So they also allowed me to have unlimited pages for notes, so I can take notes throughout the reading comp section, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Scratch paper can be used for all sections. Doesn't matter. Okay. Obviously, people use it a lot for games, but taking notes on reading comp or even LR sometimes is totally fine. Just be conscious of how much time it's taking you to write things down.
Yeah, that's why every time I do it, I make sure I'm doing it time. Like I'm not even like playing without the time. Like everything I do, I just want to have it time just so I can always have that conscious feeling of, so especially with me being a month out, like. Okay. Well, I think that was all the questions that I had. The reading comp one, that was a big relief for me to get to that.
Yeah.
Because I think that actually helped me with speed too, because I can refer back, okay, this is that, and I can go right to it. So I think that was all the concerns that I pretty much. Awesome. And I just want to also think, do you think that's a reachable goal? Like for me to hit the 160?
I do. You're doing all the right things. You're doing the timed work. You're figuring out what kind of note-taking structure works for you. I'd say just keep at it. Do the LR Socratic review method process that I lay out in the workshops. Okay. Implement that. Just really look to get your key takeaways from whatever's giving you trouble, but you're doing all the right things and you're on the right track.
Okay. And I started my draft for my personal statement as well. Nice. And I think I got a pretty good structure from looking at the classes on there so far, what I had. But are there live class? Like, so I think is it a Sunday or something that they do the live class for the personal statements?
They're doing them on Sundays and Wednesdays. And so they're starting, I think it's going to be Wednesdays going forward, starting next week.
Okay.
It'll be listed on the course sidebar, but I'm pretty sure it'll be Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. And is the only option to put my paper, like submit it for review during class, or is there another option where they can look at it and tell me from where?
So basically you could submit it in the Google form and then they'll review it during class in a group setting. If you want more one-on-one private support, they charge extra for that because it's a separate personalized service. So it's all just about what you feel comfortable with.
Okay. All right. Oh, I'm fine with it being like, I like for more people to be able to look at it.
Yeah, then you get more feedback that way.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'll round it off a little bit and I'll try to do that too while I'm in the mix of all this. But all right, that makes me feel a lot better though.
Nice. And by the way, you could submit multiple essays. So if you're writing multiple essays as part of your application, like personal statement, diversity statement, any optional essays or addenda, even your resume, you could submit all of that and they'll cover it in future classes.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, definitely. Well, thank you for everything. Your strategies are amazing. Made a big difference in LSAT prep. So on the way.
Thanks. No, I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing all the right things. If you have any questions or need anything, reach out. I'm here for you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.